Good evening and welcome to this week's main podcast. I am joined tonight by Luke of Ought to Know Better and Big Lu from LS11. How are we doing, chaps?
Yeah, good.
Newly back from his honeymoon, Big Lu from LS11.
Feels like forever since you actually went. Since you actually got married, sorry.
Yeah, three weeks was ages in Antigua. It was brilliant.
Cool. Right. Okay. We'll get into an intro and then we'll get right into it.
Hi, this is Don Matteo, and you are listening to the Ought to Know Better podcast. Let's do this.
You look like fucking Brolin, you're a Leeds eating bastard.
Look like some sort of fucking weird floating head. No.
He's a utensil player a bit, innit?
I mean, I feel a bit right, dickhead.
Nothing spectacular, really.
Nothing spectacular, really. So if we get straight into... so we've got three predictions to talk about since the last time we've done a main pod, because I didn't have the stuff together for you to do it on the last main pod that I wasn't on. So we'll do a bit of this, straight into another one.
Ought to Know Better predictions.
Like clockwork, this. Absolute clockwork. So we haven't done right well for the last couple of games, and that tends to mean that we don't have people that get a lot of points into such a situation where for Coventry, nobody got a point, and for Sunderland, nobody got a point. However, Blackburn did make things interesting. So Bren, top of the league, Bren, went with a 1-1 draw, and we beat him, and that means that he got minus points. I was 3 points behind him. I went 3-1, which means I got 3 points. So me and him have just swapped. Luke, however, has now leapfrogged both Smarty and Carl into third place behind me and Brent. Smarty and Jay has got, up to this point, Jay had 3 5 points in a row, which actually puts him on 21 for the entire season. So 15 points in 3 games that he'd only got 6 before then. Carl has gone from third to second to last, and fans are rock bottom of the league. So that leaves fans on 12, Carl on 20, Jay and Smarty joint on 21, Luke on 24, Bren on 28, and I'm on 31. And I do need to apologise, Luke, because we didn't invite you this time round. I saw my arse last season, and I'm not going to run it this season. That's basically the reason for it. Yeah, so the table has been exactly as it was at that point through the Sunderland and the Coventry fixtures because nobody got a point. John's going 4-1 Leeds. I don't know who that's. We've not got to the next lot of predictions yet. That's the result. So we'll come to the upcoming fixtures. So we'll be covering later in the podcast the Ipswich and Preston games. So we'll get into it. So Luke, I'll come to you first. I know that you covered a fair amount of it you did the B&C already, so you've spoken about the game. So in terms of the actual overall performance, how are you feeling about it now, looking back?
I don't think it was that bad, mate. I think there's... I've done this to death because I did one with Joe directly after the game as well on Joe's channel. So I did that. Then I did B&C with Joe on the Sunday, and then now. But yeah, I didn't think things were too bad, mate. I think there's some fine tweaks that need making, and some quite obvious things we can see from the terraces and on telly that Farker doesn't tend to be seeing, or he's too proud or he's too stubborn, and you know, we've been there with a stubborn coach before when things don't work, and you know, Bielsa with his man marking and his Daniel James up front, that sort of thing. I feel like we're going through that a little bit again with Farker, with Pirro playing him in the 10, no matter who we play. I think Pirro isn't a 10, but he plays well in that second striker role against teams when matches are open. It's quite obvious it works in those games. However, when we're playing teams that play a low block, whatever you want to call it, 2 banks of 4, or however you want to look at it, sometimes even a bank of 5 and 4, we need somebody who a Pablo in there, not somebody who can arrive late into the box and score a goal. We need somebody in there who can direct the game, control the tempo, and actually see a pass and have that additional vision that we haven't got at the minute. And so because Pirro hasn't got that, every time he turns, he seems to his second touch is a tackle in those types of games. However, it works really, really well in open games. We saw it at Ipswich, at Millwall, and a few other games this season where he's had his best games for us. Is when teams come at us, and yeah, it's frustrating more than anything for me because I don't think we played that well. I don't think we played too badly as a group and as a team, but these are the types of games that if we're going to be serious about catching any of those top two, which is looking mentally difficult every day, more and more difficult, then they're the games we need to be winning, not just taking a point from or even worse, drawing like we did with Sheff Wednesday. And we know how these teams are going to set up. They must be doing something in training to actually help it and benefit us and give them additional ideas. But they just look like they haven't got any additional ideas, and they're just going to keep battering the door down, doing the same old thing that they've been doing for the previous 75 minutes until he makes 5 changes or 4 changes or 3 it was at the weekend, bringing attacking players on for a defensive player. And look, it's worked a couple of times, Norwich and 1 or 2 other games where it has worked, but more often than not, we're just trying to do plan A better, which doesn't really work.
Yeah. So I just touching on, I don't know if you've seen the comments by Mark Robbins, the Coventry manager, after the game. He was saying that Leeds are a really good team and they make the challenging runs that are difficult to track and difficult to manage. But if you track and manage the runs from deep and the runs through the middle, you can get a result against us. And I think that was borne out. I think they set up well. I think, you and I talked about Sunderland and the way that they set up against us. I didn't think either side did all that much against us, to be honest. I didn't think we were that bad in either game. They were just well prepared. They didn't do much to hurt us. They just countered a lot of what's good about our game, I think, and that gave them a platform from which to get at us. Lou, it felt very much, if you remember, I don't know if you remember, when I think it was Southgate were at Borough, the way that he dealt with a result or a match that wasn't quite going their way was to just try and get as many forwards on the pitch at the same time as he could. It felt a bit manic like that towards the end at the weekend. Is that fair?
I think that's what I think that's what we could try to do a little earlier by disrupting the game, rather than leaving it to towards the end. And unfortunately, most seasons we would be probably top or second. So the narrative is being forced amongst us to be spoken about differently because of how far ahead they are and how good their form is. So we might not be having these conversations if we were sat top or second because, drawing a game might not be the end of the world. But instead what's happening is we're going, does Farker trust his bench? And, is he overworking these players who are playing every single game? So I'm torn between, what side of the fence I sit on. I definitely think he should be using the subs early, but the only player he seems to really trust off the bench is Nonto, who, if we're honest, is probably going in January anyway. So I struggle to see what we do differently, really. It's these good young sides that have a lot of running can obviously close down the space in the games. And I think we saw that from both Coventry and Sunderland. I actually thought Coventry were better going forward than Sunderland, to be honest. They looked a lot more threatening. But both very negative styles of football, which, it's quite bold. If it against any other team, I don't think Sunderland would be happy seeing that sort of football at home. But it was against Leeds and it was win at all costs, really, for their fans. So it was negative, but unfortunately it works against us. I think probably one of the only games left this season is this Saturday where we have a team left in the league that will actually go for us. Ipswich are going to back themselves, but I don't think many teams are going to do that between now and the end of the year. That end of the season, rather.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's fair. And I think to touch on Luke's point, that's why we need a player that's got the guile and the craft to pick a pass or to see movement and to unlock that defence. Because if we are just going to be dealing with two back to four or a 5 and a 4 or whatever that's going to end up being, we have to find a way to beat that. I think if we look at, we've talked at length about how frustrated we were with some of Bielsa's tactics, not making changes or making changes too late or sticking with the same, plan B was make plan A better. It feels like we're in a similar situation. Not quite as good, but in a similar situation in terms of the frustrations that we're seeing. So just to go back to the point around the changes. So, yeah, Willie Gnonto does regularly come on. For me, a little bit too late. But if you're looking at that bench, and we've got Anthony, we've got Bamford, we've got other players on that bench with we saw Joffrey come on at the weekend. What are the players that you would be looking to change? And from the starting lineup on the weekend, who would you have taken out earlier rather than later? Luke.
Me. Sorry, Lou. Or Luke.
Sorry, Big Lu. Yeah, sounds the same.
I don't think Kamara had his best game. I think we could have possibly changed that a little bit. Mostly, I'm sort of veering towards Mateo Joseph instead of Bamford at the minute, just for something different. But Bamford's not getting enough minutes to even look like he's remotely kicked a ball. He doesn't look. I wouldn't say it's hard to say he's not match fit or anything like that, but the ball bounces off him. His touch is terrible, and he's not. If he's going to be an impact, then he needs to find a way of being a little bit more useful, I guess, which just isn't happening. I mean, the difference I think between Farke and Bielsa is that I feel like Bielsa trusted his squad a lot more than Farke seems to, and that might be us just reading between the lines. It might not be a thing, but do you think Gruev's happy? Do you think Anthony's happy? These are players that have come from fairly decent clubs. They've had a lot of top flight football between them, and Farke doesn't seem to favour them. I actually think that FA Cup game might come at a good time for us to see what the rest of our squad could do, and that might aid us a little bit in getting some of these guys getting some minutes and actually opening Farke's eyes to what they can do properly and what they can contribute. Whether or not he'll go down that route, I think it's definitely a good chance for him to do that. I don't see any reason why he should play our best team against Peterborough. But I think that's what we need to use that as. We need to give those guys some minutes and just see what they can do.
So just touching on that then, is that you'd be looking to make wholesale changes? Or would you be looking to make the changes just to get some minutes into the players that we are using from the bench, but give them more of a run?
As an example, Carl Darlow plays, Jed Spence plays at right back, Archie Gray in midfield, and maybe one of Strauch rode on, maybe rest rode on and give Coops a game. Sort of, there's still a main core of the team, but playing players in their correct positions. I think that's definitely not helping us. The fact that Firpo's rubbish and injured, and Byram, we seem to win when Byram plays, or at least because he's offensive and he's positive. Firpo just looks incredibly nervous, and I think at this point, after 2 games, it's hard to criticise Jed Spence coming back and playing at left back. It's not.
We haven't won
ideal.
A game this season that Sam Byram hasn't played in.
Well, that's what I mean. And it's a stat that has some substance. A lot of the play goes through Byram and Somerville down the left-hand side, and he's involved both offensively and defensively, and he's good at both, if we're honest. And that's not even his position, but Jed Spence looks good. But if he's a right back and that's what he's used to doing, and he isn't as diverse as Byram, then I think that's going to be the way to go, especially if we're not actually going to buy left back. We need to get Byram fit and play Jed Spence on the right, and I think the defence starts looking differently. I mean, we've seen a few wingers play recently, and I've seen a few people calling for Ayling and stuff like that, which personally I think is laughable. I mean, can you imagine Ayling against Jack Clark the other week, they'd have probably won 2 or 3-0. And that's as much as we all love Luke Ayling, it's this anyone with any pace. Luke Ayling he's not going to be the man. But
yeah, he's not the player he was, is he? And I think you're right. If there's somebody with pace that's running at him, he's going to be on the back foot all the time, and he's going to be struggling. I think.
Yeah.
If you think of when Spence were playing, I can't remember his name, but he were up against that 7, and Spence was struggling. I think it is unnatural for him. He's very focused on being a right-footed player. He always will stop, come back. He had lots of chance to run somebody on the outside. And didn't really seem to take it. I've just pulled up that stat that we've just mentioned around Sam Byram. So Leeds United are yet to. So this was, I don't know if this was originally him or if he's picked it up from somewhere else, but Leeds since '66 has said Leeds United is still yet to win a championship game this season without Sam Byram in the starting 11. That's 6 games without him, 5 draws, 1 defeat. And I've won 12 of 16 with him in the 11. And it is clear to see, I've said on multiple podcasts now, I was really reticent. I didn't think he were going to come in and have any sort of impact. And I held my hand up right at the start because he hit the ground running and he's been a key player to us. And we really do need him back. And I think seeing Spence play on the right, I think that will be a big deal.
Yeah.
So you touched on Gruev there as well. I think from that sort of perspective, we've not really seen much of him. And when he's come on, he's almost been an 8/10 rather than playing. My understanding of his natural position is a 4. He's a defensive midfielder. So when he's being put on to run round and make a nuisance of himself and whatever else, which he seems to do quite well, he's not even playing in his natural position. And so, do you think that is a little bit of a trust, or is it right? We've got 2 players there that are working, and therefore I'm not going to change it in the defensive midfielder. That double pivot.
I think Gruev's 4th choice in that central defensive midfield role. I think he trusts Ampadu and Kamara, and then if he, for whatever reason, one of those two weren't available, I imagine he would probably bring Ayling or somebody else to play right back and move Archie into there before he'd bring Gruev in. Now, I don't know what the conversations were with Gruev before he signed, whether that was the agreement or whatnot, but I mean, modern day footballers generally have an idea where they sit in terms of squad hierarchy and positioning in their particular positions and where they lie. But I think the fact that we haven't seen very much of him is very much a trust issue. I don't think Farke thinks he's good enough. Simply, he doesn't even give him 5 or 10 minutes even when we're looking leggy. Ampadu and Kamara have been fantastic in there. I partly disagree with what Lou said at the beginning. I thought Kamara was actually played all right. I thought he started poorly, but following that he seemed to win a lot of the ball back. He just steps across his man and shields the ball and wins the ball back on a number of occasions. But he's not going to score you a 30-yard screamer to win a game, is he? He seems scared of shooting. Now, whether that's tactically or whatnot, I don't know. But yeah, I think going back to the initial question around trust and that, I think it absolutely is. Brinnan asked in the comments a moment ago, do we trust anyone off the bench to come on and positively change a game? And I think he's spot on. I think the only person who we would trust to actually make a difference, who has made a difference recently, is Willie Nunto. And like you say, Lou, the likelihood is he's only having cameos because we're just trying to minimize his game time because we're likely going to put him in the shop window in January. So yeah, I think he trusts his starting 11. I think maybe 1 or 2 more. Obviously, I think if Byron was fit, he'd probably be one that he trusted. And I think if we had a fully fit team, Kamara probably drops to the bench anyway because you play Jed Spence at right back and Byron at left back. So
yeah,
does he only trust that front 11? That first 11.
I think
probably
if we're looking at
probably 2 or 3.
If we're looking at the whole season, I think it's harsh to say that Anthony's had no impact. He scored a good goal against Watford. He played quite well against QPR, but obviously the bigger picture with that is that QPR were pretty bad. They were terrible at Ellen Road. I can't believe we only won it 1-0. But and also with Gruev, he played against Stoke, and I think the problem that Gruev has is that he's not the full package compared to, like you say, the other three central midfielders. In that, from what we've seen of him, he's not very progressive when it comes to passing. And making the through balls. Ampadu and Kamara particularly both do both the defensive work and they're looking to get forward. So they do a lot more than what Gruev seems to do. So his skills feel very limited to what we need in our team at the moment, which is obviously holding him back. So it doesn't mean he's a bad player. He just probably isn't a player that we need at the moment. So Farker's never going to say he doesn't trust some of his squad, but if we don't get a 10 and a left back, I'd say top two is probably going to get further and further away from us. Definitely.
I think it's hope rather than expectation that Leicester and Ipswich will be impacted in January by players not being available to them through Asia Cup, African Cup of Nations, whatever else is going on. Because there is a potential for them to be impacted. But as to Luke's point, if we're in a position where we're not winning these games, you mentioned Sheff Wednesday, Birmingham were poor. All right, they were better than Rooney. Rooney's Birmingham, but even so, we should have beaten them and we didn't. And that's where we're dropping points. We've actually done well against those sides that are further up the table because those are the sides that try and play football against us, and that opens the game up for us. And we can play when that happens. But it does seem to be those games. So just have a look at the subs. So we've got Darlow, Ayling, Cooper, Grev, Anthony, Gellart, Nonto, Joseph, and Bamford. I think out of those, the only ones that... So Bamford aside, who seems to be cursed, the only ones that have had a positive impact in an attacking sense at this level in the past are Anthony, that were for another club. Well, I say at this level, I was going to say Nonto, but that one at this level, he had an impact last season. It's not really done much this season, I don't think. So we have seen him influence a game before, but not for us recently.
No, but I would say up until probably the last 2 or 3 games, Nonto hasn't had much of a positive effect. But I would say with the last time, certainly the last 2 times he's come on, when we've been chasing either Sunderland or whether we've been chasing the win against Coventry, I thought he's come on and he has freshened things up and he has made us look a little bit. To be honest, I thought Joffrey came on and did all right the other day. I don't think he was too bad when he did it. And this, look, it's not this. We can sit here and we can speculate about what Farker thinks about his team all day long, but we're never ever really going to know the truth. But the truths we're taking out of it is simply from a game day. He sees them week in, week out. We don't, he sees them every day almost, probably more than he sees his kids if he's got kids. Like, so he spends more time with these players, so he will know their capabilities. He's a good manager. He's a good manager, and we've only got to take into account the start of the season we had and everything else, and the way he made Cine train on his own, Willie train on his own as well. Did Cree train on his own as well? Was it the 3 of them?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I've made that up. I think about about Cree actually. I think I've made that up, but for some reason it was in my head. But yeah, so when you're managing, we've had massive turmoil this season so far, and to still be in the position we're in, I don't know if we're just getting ahead of ourselves, because any other season would be smug and actually just saying, yeah, do you know what? You expect to lose a couple, you expect to draw a couple of games, you should be winning, and we would be sitting here pretty smug, I think. But because of the perspective, and Joe said it really well, but much better than I probably could, but I can't remember the terminology used. But because of the perspective and these two running away with it and having record-breaking season, to put into perspective,
they are, both of them are record-breaking.
Put it into perspective, the first and second, or second and third of the championship ever in terms of points at this stage of the season. Bielsa's Leeds, the season we went up, are only down in 11th. So that gives you a bit of perspective how good we were that season. Do you know what I mean? So they're flying, and so yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're being overcritical sometimes because of being in 3rd place rather than being in 2nd or 1st, but it is what it is, man. I still very much trust the process, and I trust that Fark still knows what he's doing. And as I said, there's a long
season.
Well.
Yeah, it is, and I think as well the importance of Christmas, particularly with the fixtures both Leeds and Ipswich have got. will tell a lot. I mean, if we're playing Ipswich at home, Preston and West Brom, who, as the table suggests, are, you know, decent championship teams, regardless of Ipswich, who are clearly, you know, really good and having a good season and everything else. If we can get 7 points from those 3 games and they lose to us potentially and they lose to Leicester, then things look really different. But at the minute, it's very easy to be negative about it. Oh, I can't see where the next win's coming from or anything like that. It was exactly the same in the Championship under Bielsa, where draws felt like defeats. We're not being, I don't think as a fan base we're being entitled or anything like that. Like, I remember draws feeling like defeats, but I think the difference between Bielsa and Farke and being in the Championship this time is actually we've not been in the Premier League for 16 years. I don't think any of the fan base can go, oh, I'm desperate to get back to the Premier League. Obviously, we want to get there or anything like so. There is less desperation. But when you are doing well and you are winning games and you're scoring goals and you're up there at the top, you want to carry on winning because, you know, because it's good. It's, you know, it's the whole reason you love it. But so we're in a good position still. And that's the thing. Like, draws are going to feel like defeats because we're a really good team who have been made to look like we're underperforming when we drop points only because of the other 2 teams. And it is hard to see past that when you look at the table. But I don't know how much I believe Farke when he says he doesn't look at the table and the players don't look at the table. I think it's bollocks. Like, you know, like it's what you're playing for in a league. You're looking at it, and I think we might see a really different, less lethargic Leeds this weekend because they'll know how big this game is.
Go on, Luke.
Agreed. No, I was gonna come on to more about Ipswich, but I know we'll come on to that in a bit. So
no, that's fine. No, yeah. So Chris Gillett asked a question. Does anyone remember a time we didn't need a new left back? And I think
1991, 92, when Tony DeRigo was here, probably.
Yeah. So there's a lot of talk about Ian Hart, but he was a free kick merchant. Let's be honest. He was just a short Sean Gregan. He was very slow.
He was, but he wasn't seen as a shit left back. So
no,
I guess so. I guess that must be the last good one, which is.
Oh, nice one, Lou. Cool story, bro.
Yeah. Oh, he's back.
Did you get a phone call?
No, I don't know what that was.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, he disappeared for a second. But Skip's asked another question as well, is if we do get... So we've mentioned the need for a 10, somebody with guile, somebody that can pick that pass, see the movement and unlock a defence. But Skip asked if we do get a 10, who gets dropped? So, you know, he said he'd push Pirot as a 9 and bench Rutter because you can't drop James or Somerville. And if you look at their output and the impact and the goals and the assists that they've got, I can see where he's coming from. But at the same time, it's really difficult to drop any of that front 4 if you look at their stats.
Yeah.
I think it'd just be, for me, it'd be a straight swap. So in games where we're trying to unlock, rather than actually go for it, it'd be a straight swap for Pirot for this creative number 10, whoever it may be, Pablo, or, you know, you can use any examples you like, but somebody who's a natural 10 and not a second striker pretty much. We don't have anybody in there to create anything. We rely on, as wingers doing well, we rely on Rutter doing a bit of magic or Pirot coming into the box. Beyond that, we don't, other than Ampadu's lob forward for Rutter the other week, I don't think many others, if any, have got any assists, you know, from that back 6, if you like. We don't really have that creativity, you know, that so yeah, I mean, but either way, no matter who you replace, you're sacrificing something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think those guys those guys are not good enough at holding the ball up as 9s, Ritter and Pirot. It's Bamford used to be good at that. I don't know if he is anymore, but that's my issue with those 2. We saw a lot in the first half against Coventry, the ball bouncing off Ritter, and I think Pirot is good in space, but I think when he's under pressure, he gives the ball away, and that's why I wouldn't trust either of them as like out and out 9s.
So what you're saying is you'd play Paddy Bamford?
No. Well, I'm saying maybe give Joseph a go, see if he's good at holding the ball up. You know, I think
what we're missing is a bit of a happy medium as well. Rutter will press, You know, he will press, but his finishing is debatable at times.
Abysmal. It's fucking abysmal. Let's say what it is.
But I mean, his finishing in parts has been good. Like, I mean, let's say it just depends which Jorginho Rutter you've got on that day. Rutter's finishing absolutely incredible. He gets anywhere. He gets a shot in the box 9 times out. Yeah.
You said Rutter's again.
I meant Pirro's, yeah. And Pirro's finishing is clinical. Do you know what I mean? But then he's a big lad. He doesn't move about like Rutter does, and he's not going to put as much pressure on the back line. So we think, because we haven't seen him in there yet. But for me, based on what we've seen this season, I would just like to see a little change, a little tweak. Maybe swap Rutter and Pirro in those games, but more permanently within the game. So rather than have them swapping, leave Rutter in the 10 and put Pirro in 9 and just see how we get on, just for 20 minutes, and just see if that makes any difference. We haven't seen that yet.
No, we haven't. And I think that is actually one of the issues that we do have, is we almost play without a 9 because Rutter drops deep and Pirro's looking to arrive late. So who's actually occupying the defence at that point in time? And I think that's what Mark Robbins was talking about with the runs from the centre of the park. Is we've got Jimmy and James doing all of the stuff that they're doing out wide, and they are having good seasons so far. And we've got Pirro in the 10 and Rutter dropping deep. And it's like, well, somebody's got to go and occupy that defence, because otherwise they're just stood there taking up all of that space and stopping us playing.
It's a really weird, they're really interesting point of conversation, Ritter. I mean, I can't say I've ever seen a footballer like him in many ways. Like, you've got Peru, who will put the ball in the corners. Ritter, who just almost hits and hopes, really. He doesn't look like he's trying to place the ball anywhere. But
like a slap shot in ice hockey, isn't it?
It is. It's so bizarre. But when he drops deep, he looks really dangerous. But then he's got the whole, and I don't know if it's him holding the player off or the strength, but he always looks like he's just about to lose the ball. And when you compare him to like Somerville, who's got the ball close to his feet, he's skillful, he's got players backing off. Ritter seems to have to work so hard to keep the ball. It's just really bizarre. I don't really know how to explain it. Like watching him as a footballer, he looks clumsy and strong, and it's just like all these words that just sort of contradict each other, really, of how you describe him. But
so it's the Paulo one-chop effect. If he doesn't know what he's about to do next, how can you defend it?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess it is hard to defend against. It's bizarre.
It is strange, but it's an interesting question. If you do buy somebody that is a Pablo, a Buendia, somebody like that can unlock a defence and can play those passes in and can hold the ball up and get runners off him, well, actually, then there's no space in that starting lineup for either Pirro or Rutter if you're playing that person. So it's a really interesting one. Okay. So no, that's fair. So there's a couple of others. We got a comment there. Disappointed with Shaxs this season. I know he can't getting injured, but was always going to be a squad player, but he's never available when needed. It's a shame. I think it's true to say, and it might be a bit unfair saying we're disappointed with him because he can't help being injured, and he would love to be able to play. I think Farke did speak about trusting him early in the season, didn't he? It's an interesting
and it looked every bit as good. I mean, we played, other than the game when he played on the right wing early on in the season, we had 2 goalies on the bench. I think he's looked relatively steady for us. Do you know what I mean? When he's filled in either at left back or right back.
Yeah, and I think if we'd have had him at left back and Spence would have been able to play on the right, and potentially a Gray in the middle if we're dropping Kamara out, we actually, I think, will look completely different with Spence on the right. I really do. And
do you think that's something we'll see eventually then?
I hope so.
As in, presuming it's Kamara they drop and bring Gray back into the middle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of it would depend on how much, Farke spoke at the start of the season about wanting to have 100% possession, and that he knows that that's not always going to be the case, but that's going to be the aim. They want the ball all the time. And Gray is more that than Kamara is, I think. Kamara is a reactive player rather than Gray's somebody who wants to get on the ball and make things happen.
Well, it's why they worked well together. I mean, it's weird to say that, weird to see that he's moved him to right back, considering how well Ampadu and Gray played in the middle at the start of the season. I guess some of that is the fact that Kamara played some minutes and they were like, so it turns out he's pretty good. And then that sort of shifted the focus. It was like, right, so we've not got any decent fit right back, so let's try Archie, who's getting better in that position, but he still has his struggles depending on the opponent.
Yeah.
He got
anybody
against Jack
pacey
Clark, but he did all right.
Yeah. Anybody pacey and tricky, he's going to struggle. Do you know what I mean? I mean, he's played there for the England youth side that when they won the recent competition. I forget, was it the Euros they won or something? And he played. I think he played at right back for them when they won that. Is it the England under 18s? It was, wasn't it? Or 16s, I can't remember. But anyway, he played there for the majority of the tournament, so he can play there. But it's different playing against 16, 18-year-old kids to wingers that are arguably some of them good enough probably to play in the Premier League. So, but yeah, look, he's done a job there, and quite rightly, like you say there, Lou, he was only put there because we brought in Spence, who got injured. We brought Shackleton was injured. Byram was playing on the left. Burpo was injured, so we didn't have another left back. So the only other option would have been to play Luke Ayling there, and yeah, we've already said how
was having a nightmare. Yeah.
So yeah, no, got it.
Fairs. And just the last piece on the comments that we've had. Bremner's Ghost is selling Nonto in January while probably getting Arrington back is not ideal.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I am, and I really don't want him to come back ever. But I did say at the end of last season, I felt that sort of step back would probably benefit him because I think with a little bit more time playing at 10 and a little bit more time, because he had some good games for us, if you remember last season. And look, I don't want him to come back because of the way he left, and I don't want any of that lot to come back. And we'll come on to another one of them in a short while who I don't want to come back. But yeah, I felt at the end of last season, if he'd hung around, this would have been the best move for his career because it was either make or break. To go off on loan and fuck off and do whatever you do shit in another top league that's played in the European competitions is pointless. He should have took a step back with us because arguably I felt he would be quite impactful in this league because he's got tricky feet. He's quite good with his feet. And you look at the game against Chelsea, he was probably our man of the match when we beat him 3-0 last season. But yeah, I mean, it's what could have been. Do you know what I mean? I don't ever want to see him in a Leeds shirt again, but I actually think he could add something because that's the ilk of the player we're probably looking at, and at this level, I think he probably could have been quite good.
I see what you're saying, but all I can picture is skillful players in this league are not protected. The amount of times we'll see Brendan Harrison fouled and the ref waving play on is just going to be pretty significant.
Look at Adel Taarabt, probably arguably the best player ever in the Championship, though. I mean, he's not as good as Adel Taarabt, let's be honest.
I think make or break is the right thing because he will get kicked in the air. He is soft as shit. If he can be quick enough and nimble enough to get away from the tackles, he might do all right. It's unlikely that... Oh, Big Lou's gone. He's actually gone this time. He's so lightweight. He's like a Rizzler paper. I think it's the I don't want to see him back. There's talk about somebody was saying today about if Sinistera doesn't walk into your starting lineup, it's just because you hold a grudge and not because you recognise that he's the best player that we would have. All of that sort of rubbish. You talk about Koch, who's still for me the worst centre back we've had in 10 years. Llorente, who's trying to rival him for that. You've got Christensen, who Skip has just said.
Yeah.
Roma fans screaming Rasmus is the worst signing ever for them. He scored an own goal at the weekend.
Is it? I saw it. I've seen it. It's not even like a fluky own goal. It's almost like he puts it in his own net. It's like he meant to do it. Have you seen it?
No, I've not actually seen it. No,
I'll find it for you later, mate. Honestly, it's fucking horrible. Like he's running back towards his goal. He defends, and instead of just trying to put his left foot around it and getting it away from his goal, he's sort of heading towards his goal. He just puts his right foot into it and puts it in the bottom corner.
So he's got it under control before he has a shot.
It's a great finish.
Brilliant. And then there's somebody else going to come on to, but I think if you look at the amount of money that we've sent out on loan, that we spent on those players and sent out on loan, it's pretty terrible, isn't it? Especially when you consider that we've probably signed better players to replace them for minimal fees. So
I think that just on that quickly before you move on, mate. I think that That's a concern for me, and I'll tell you why. Because if we don't go up this season, which is, I know hypothetical speaking and all that, I know we're arguably the second or third, fourth best team, whatever. If we don't go up this season, we've got all these players returning to us on relatively good contracts, even on 50% wages, or if they have to go back on loan again, then they have to go back on loan. But you know, we're going to lose the best players we've got. Some of it will be gone. Rutter, arguably.
Ampadu, probably.
Maybe, yeah. But you're looking then, we're not going to sign Rodon. Jed Spence goes.
Yeah.
You know, you're then looking at almost a full
Archie
squad
Gray will
rebuild.
be very difficult to keep hold of at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what concerns me. Not just because of the makeup of the squad, but financially as well. You know, we're not going to get as money back on those players that we've bought, and they all cost a decent amount of money. So it's tough. It is very, very tough. Who would be in sports management and finances and that? I could not be asked.
And this is a problem not of the 49ers making, but it's something that they're going to have to come up with.
No, they've inherited it, don't they? Do you know what I mean?
So Bryn asked a question earlier on that I missed. You've been umpiring, Gilly. It's actually cream. It's not white. And it's one of my favourites, actually. I like the stop. But
so stop picking on him.
So stop picking on me, you big bully. So I want to move on. I think you've got a video ready for us. We'll just have a conversation off the back of this if you want to play it.
Yeah, let's hit the play button. For those that haven't seen this yet, prepare to be shocked, maybe. I don't know. Let me know if you can hear it. All right, just give me a thumbs up.
Geelong, my son, who's it? Can you have your shirt? Can you have a shirt, please? Can me lad have a shirt? Jack! Jack, can me son have your shirt? Where is it? Jack, can you have it? Thank you. Thank you. Here we go, come right, mate. Hey, what's it? What is Jack, lad? Hey, stay here. Son, stay here. Not the matter leads. Oh, fucking no. Stay here. Yes, boys.
So there we see Jack Harrison celebrating. Had a decent game, I think, at the other day for Everton. It obviously comes over to his mum. If you're not watching, if you're listening to this through audio, we just obviously played that video. But a couple of things about that for me, Jack. And that's only the third time I've watched that video because I was disgusted at it the first time. Absolutely disgusted. I was like fuming with it. But actually, Jack doesn't do a lot wrong. And when he says to him, "Don't leave," and that, he's putting his thumbs up, but he gets out of the way. Do you know what I mean? And it's changed my opinion ever so slightly on it. Ever so slightly. I still very much with the opinion. I think he's a snake and he's pissed off and he's done pretty much as bad, if not worse, than Sinistera, Aronson, the rest of them. And I'll tell you why. I'll give you my reasoning for this. Jack was given a platform by Leeds United to showcase how good he was under Marcelo Bielsa. And to be fair, he ran his socks off for Marcelo Bielsa and he, turned blood to water and all that sort of stuff. But he's left people he considered probably friends after being part of the problem of getting relegated. And that's why I feel it's slightly worse. Maybe not as bad as Sinistera, who threatened to sue the club or whoever it was. But he's still part of the problem that got relegated. He had an opportunity. He's probably not on tiny money. He would have probably been on 40, 30 grand a week instead of 60 or to 80 grand a week that he was on. He was half his wages. Give us one season to make that back up. And his mum just doesn't help things here. His mum really doesn't help things. Oh, fuck off, she says when he says, don't go back to Leeds. you know what I mean? And he's holding her hand.
I agree.
Holding her hand.
I agree, but I think people are people pleasers, mate. You know, if you're in a crowd of people like that, you're just people pleasing. I don't think Jack Harrison's done a lot wrong there, really. Like, you know, players get all coy about those, you know, sorts of things. They get shouted at them all the time. I don't know. I don't think there's a lot in this. His mum has definitely not helped things, but I don't know. I struggle to see, actually. I'd probably be annoyed about it if he'd left us in a bad situation. But with the wingers we had left and with how they've performed this season, are we really that annoyed?
No, I don't suppose. I don't suppose so. But nobody could have. I mean, I certainly did, but nobody else did. On this podcast, could have predicted how good a season Dan James was going to have for us.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily to do with the position. It's, you know, there is mates he got promoted with, who he spent a couple of years on loan here. Then eventually we bought him from City. You know, we give him the opportunity to show how good he was, and then he's decided to go to. Let's not make no jokes either. He was going to Everton, who were one of the favourites to be battling relegation. Now, fair enough, they've turned it around this season. They're having quite a good season under Dyche, despite the 10-point deduction. But he thought he was walking into a squad that was going to be flirting with relegation again, which they still are, I suppose. But I think they'll clear it by a mile this season. But what sort of aspirations does that say? Is he gone for money? Is it just money? Because he's not going to play in the Premier League because of international duties. Because let's face it, he's not going to get selected for England anytime soon. So what benefit has he got other than monetary?
He's still contracted to us for another 4
Till 2028,
years, isn't he?
5 years, yeah.
So I think for me, I'm of a position where I don't really want to see back any of the players that have gone out on loan. Unless it's youth that have gone out on loan that have gone because they won't get minutes with us. You know, those first teamers, I think I'm done with them. Of all of them, Jack Harrison's the one I'm least pissed at. And the reason for that is we had him on loan for 3 seasons. We were supposed to sign him after the first and after the second, and we eventually signed him after the third. He worked hard and I know that shouldn't be something that we praise people for, because they all should.
He was only on loan for 2 years, wasn't he?
He worked. I think it was 3. I think we extended it again.
We signed him in the third season, I think.
I thought it was at the end of the third season.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you know, we were supposed to sign him and we didn't, and you know, we renegotiated it and all of that sort of stuff. But then Rads did his best to ship him out to Leicester, and to all intents and purposes, he were gone. And I think at the very end of that, the 49ers went, no, actually, we're not. And he were already there. Rads had told him he were being sold. And then he came back and he were back in the side and he were expected to perform. And he worked hard. And he's one of the most frustrating players we've had because it was so hot and cold. You know, against West Ham, he scored an hat-trick. And in the next 2 games, he couldn't get a shot on target. You know, he is a frustrating player because he's inconsistent. But if he'd have been as consistent as his best games in every game, we would never have had him in the first place. It'd have been in the Champions League side, because his best game was far and away, like, you know, the only person that could beat him really is Raf over that period in terms of impact to the side when he were on his game. So I think as a club, we'd messed him about quite a bit. Yes, we'd give him a platform to succeed, and he'd done that. But we'd also messed him about quite a bit. So I think because of that, and because it felt like he didn't really leave under a black cloud, you know, the legal threats that Cine and co had put towards the club, I'm not enamoured with the idea of having any of them back. But he's the one that I would be least pissed at.
Whilst I partly agree with some of that, I think he signed a brand new contract this year, so a few months before the season ended. Do you not feel he's using us as a bit of a booty call? He knows he can come back here on the 40 grand. Say he was on 80 grand, his new contract. That's a complete guess, by the way. It probably wasn't anything like that. But let's use 80 grand as a ballpark figure. He knows, regardless what happens this season, he can come back to Leeds United on 40 grand a year for another 4 years. Regardless what happens to his career, he can come back and still be paid 40 grand a year for the next 4 years after the year he's been on loan.
Yeah, but the club put that contract in front of him to sign.
Yeah, I suppose, but still,
somebody offers you something that there's no downside to it. You can push yourself to go for a loan because there's a loan deal in there. You're going to be guaranteed high level of wages because you're going to get your 30 or 40 at the bare minimum if you don't get a loan move and whatever else. Somebody puts that sort of deal in front of you, you'd be mad to say no to it, wouldn't you?
I would, but I think if I look at what the club had maybe done for me is probably the wrong thing when you've just explained how many times he was on loan and everything else. But I suppose it goes back to having a little bit of dignity for me. And actually, if he was look at Dan James, what we put him through and what he's come back and done.
Yeah.
Great attitude, really. Like it's a weird one. I mean, the two players we're talking about potentially coming back, Aronson and Harrison, would be the players I'd least begrudge coming back. Like, there's talk of Sinistera even coming back in January, which I don't know how true that is, but I've seen a few things doing the rounds because he's not getting game time or whatever. But we have short memories as well as football fans. It's as in everybody hated Nonto for a time when he was trying to force a move and throwing his toys out his pram, and then some older heads got him calmed down and everything. Are there people aren't really talking about that? It's all gone quiet, but he's definitely going to go in January. A lot of Leeds fans think some of the reason he's not playing is because Farke doesn't want to get too reliant on him because it's likely that someone will sell him in January, which, I guess would make sense.
I see that. But yeah, I do agree with the point that of all the players that might come back, so Cox out of contract at the end of the season, he won't come back.
No.
So he's one we can rule out anyway.
I understand if you don't get
players,
promoted anyway, though, then these contracts replay. As far as I understand, I thought I read something, maybe Phil Hay or something.
I'm not sure what you mean in terms of they can go back out on loan again.
So they can go back out on loan if we don't get promoted.
Yeah. No, I expect that's the case because I think it was if we're not in the Premier League, not if we get relegated that one season. So I expect that would be the case. But without being able to see the contract, we'd have to just see.
Anyway. Yeah, I'm sure I read something anyway. I could have been dreaming. I usually do.
How bad? I like talking about these players now is just depressing. How bad were they?
It really is. It really is.
That was so bad, man. Oh.
So just looking at Jack Harrison's looking at Everton's stats, we see Dwight McNeil's got 4 assists and 2 goals. Now he's shit. He's really shit, and he's their best assister. Jack Harrison's on 3 assists and 1 goal, but he's played 3 fewer games. So they're at about the same. And they're really poor. Now, Everton have won their last 4 games in a row, which is a real shame. There's no way they were ever going to get relegated this season with the shite that's in the Premier League. It is a really weak league with those 3 promoted sides. So it is a real shame that Everton aren't going to struggle. But that's just the situation, I'm afraid. But I think most of that were his mum rather than him.
Yeah, I agree.
Just caused him a bit of a storm. I did while I was there. I had the assists up. So we were talking about. So Luke, you made a point about the Leeds assists and that wasn't really coming from anybody outside the front 4. So Kamara's the best outside that, where he's got 2 assists and no goals. And actually, Pirot's only got 1 assist, but he's got 8 goals. So
it's on 8 now, isn't it?
We'll let him have that. Beyond that, it is Luke Ayling.
With a
couple of goals, hasn't he?
1 goal, 1 assist.
Did he not get one in the cup as well? Or was that in the cup? I don't matter anyway. I can't be asked.
This is the Championship in the EFL Cup. So if you got one in the FA Cup, it's not counted. So Nonto, Ayling, and Byram all on 1 goal, 1 assist each. Shaq on 1 assist. Archie Gray on 1 assist, and Ethan Ampadu on 1 assist. We all remember Ampadu's 1 assist. It was the long ball to Ruto, magic touch, and then went through 1 goal. But yeah, I think it is telling that it's our front 4 that have got all the stats, and there's very, very little coming from anywhere else. I actually expected Byram to have a bit better than that because he's had a bit more impact. But It is what it is. That's that. And he's had 19 games. He's got 1 goal, 1 assist from left back.
Kamara and Ampadu don't even look like scoring either, do they?
They really don't. I mean, Ampadu, when we've seen him shoot, it don't look natural, does it? It's not something that's part of his natural game.
Yeah, it's not Adam Forshaw bad, but it's it's close.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So that's that element. So just want to move on to a couple of things. So we had another comment here. If I can get to comments and then look at the ones that have been starred. Come on, hurry up. So my shit take of the week. So I think one of the things my head fell off.
Hey, has got a shit take this week, my little sparrowfat.
Nearly.
I'm there for you.
But I did.
You can't do Bryn out of his little moment of
I know. Bren,
sorry, Bryn, not Bryn. I get them both mixed up. Even worse when I'm pissed.
It's easy done. Jason O'Keefe asked this question, but this is my shit take of the week as well. Where is this talk about sacking Farker come from, or why we shouldn't sack Farker? I don't get that last bit, but is that just because people are arguing about it? Because for me, it is Brent's voice, yeah. Yeah, for me, it's just ludicrous to consider that you look at the start that we had, and you look at the fact that we're third behind 2 record-breaking seasons for Ipswich and Leicester. And I think I was going to ask Lou, I was going to ask you a question earlier on after we touched on this, and I just it slipped my mind again. Does it feel like there's no real jeopardy at this point in time? And that's why it's a bit difficult to get excited about it, because we're not actually pushing the top 2. We're not close enough to say that we're pushing. But we're so far away from 7th. We're kind of comfortable.
No, but I think that's where our fun comes from, at least until, we're going to get playoffs. I don't think we're going to crumble enough to not get playoffs. So I think I think that's
it now.
our fun is going to come from chasing the top 2. So, that's what we have to hold on to. That's what we have to believe. I am going to sit there and watch Ipswich games in the hope that they, fuck up, and I will continue to do that. I'll probably, after last night, I'll probably stop watching the Leicester games now and just sort of accept that one. But
actually, though, just really quickly, just to butt in, both Leicester and Ipswich are conceding a lot of goals, a lot of shit goals as well. So they're not unbeatable.
They're not. I was looking at this last night, and actually, the players that they're losing to the African Cup of Nations, and I think it's 4, is Fatawu, Mabadidi, Ndidi, and Patson Daka. So they're all offensive players. And Iheanacho. So that's potentially 5. Patson Daka is from Zambia, who I think is still in the African Cup of Nations. They should be. So that's all attacking players. So I struggle to see how it won't have an impact, at least in the final third. It's clutching at straws. In some ways.
It's like us losing Pirro, Somerville, Dan James, and Rutter. It's like us losing that 4 because they
it's annoying, really, because when we beat Leicester and we sort of cut the gap, and I know it was a few games ago, it was potentially nearly 17 points between us and them, and it's 13 points now. So, do you know what I mean? They're nearly back where they were going to be. So I think we can just write Leicester off in general. Like they look like a Premier League side. They get it done when we don't in those games, and they've won the last 2 games 3-2 against Millwall and Birmingham, who are 2 underperforming sides. They are conceding goals, but they're just too good going forward. We can write them off. So going back to what you said, Gilly, I think that's just our fun is going to come from us hunting down Ipswich, and that's going to be the thing we look towards until we get to potentially Easter, where they might be still the same amount of points ahead, and then we go right. I don't want to settle for playoffs, because we all know what's going to happen. We'll get Sunderland, they'll play 2 banks of 4, and Jack Clark will score, and they'll win 1-0 in the semis. Like, it's happening, isn't it?
Mabadidi's English, apparently.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
So maybe it was the 4.
Yeah, Iheanacho, Daka, and Ndidi.
And Fatawu.
Yeah, Fatawu, Daka, Inacho, and Ndidi.
So yeah, look at sorry, go on.
Fatawu was he? Did he give Sam Byram a really hard time in that game? Didn't he?
He did.
Probably the only player to do that.
He got him booked, didn't he? And then I think Leeds kind of shored it up a little bit and made it so that it was less a one-on-one each time. But yeah, he did run in. But so Dewsbury Hall's having a stupid name, but he's having a good season. 9 assists, 7 goals. Vardy's got 7 goals, but he's injured at the moment. Mavididi's up there as well. But you take Mavididi's got 7 goals. You take him out. You take Iheanacho out, who's on 6 goals, and especially with Vardy injured, they're very reliant on 1 or 2 players. But there were a point made in the comments. Actually, I forgot to star it, so I don't know who said it. Apologies, but they'll also have a good draw because they can just go and sign someone.
Yeah,
whoever they're signing, if that's from the Championship side or if that's from France or Spain or whatever that might be, it's a very likely position that they'll be in the Premier League next season.
Yeah, well, it's easy. It's an easy pull. They'll go, look, we've got 3 or 4 really good players out for the next sort of 3 or 4 weeks. You're going to be getting some game time in that time. When they come back, it might change, but let's be honest, we're going to be in the Premier League, and that's going to be the league you're playing in next season. So it's an easy sell, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And say they were missing a left back, for example, and there's that Ian Matson at Chelsea want to move, and it's between us and them. Who's gonna get him? Do you see what I mean? We won't have that. We'll still have to work a lot harder to do our convincing, I think.
We will, absolutely. So moving on to the upcoming games then. So first one's Ipswich. So Luke, I'll come to you first on that. Is the side going to pick itself again? You see any changes?
Yeah, I think this is actually a game where Pirro actually works. So after all we've said about him not being a great second striker, this is the type of game it does work because Ipswich will come. They'll leave gaps in that spot in the behind. I've forgotten what you call it. The 17, what that guy called it the other day. Can you remember?
Yeah, just outside. 14, wasn't it? It's talking about the areas of the pitch and the way that you break it down.
Yeah. Within there, I feel this is the type of game, and it showed with Ipswich away. I think if Ipswich continue to play how they have all season, I have no reason to believe that they won't. Unless McKenna's done his homework and said, right, we're going to sit back all game and just going to defend this one out, which they're not that good at, by the way, because they have conceded a lot of goals away and at home. I see it going very similar to the game at their place. I just feel we'll be man if they go man for man and play a similar style to us, we will beat them for me. And that's our bread and butter. But what our bread and butter actually should be is beating the teams that are shit in the league, and we'd actually be up there with them then. So, if they, I don't think they will defend. I see it going only one way. I think we'll beat them convincingly actually at home. But yeah, it makes for a good spectacle for a neutral, I suppose. My heart will be in my mouth all game, but I'm sure. I just fancy there's so many teams that could or should have been on the end of a hiding this season. I just feel this might be the one that it comes.
You think we're going to batter them?
I do.
Nice. Okay. It's zones, isn't it? Zone 14 was
Zone
the
14 or whatever.
Yeah. I'm not sure you answered the question I asked, so I'm going to ask Luke.
Oh, sorry. No, I probably didn't.
Do you think we're going to change any of the personnel?
So I think if Byram's still not fit, so I expect Spence left back. Yeah, I expect the exact same starting lineup. I would like to see changes, but given they've had a week recovery from last week, where we've not had a game midweek this week, I think it will probably go with the same starting 11, and we'll all be like, oh, for fuck's sake. And then when we're in 4-1, which is going to be my prediction, by the way, we will all be like, oh, sorry, we got it all wrong. But I would like to see more changes in the game at Preston. Preston are a much worse footballing team. They've just been spanked at home. There's much more chance to to change things around a little bit. And it'll be past the halfway point of the season. Players will be starting to get even more leggy now. I believe Farker has had that plan in his head all along. To change things up at that halfway point as well. Not massively, but enough to create more of a question mark to the opposing coaches and that. So yeah, I expect we'll be unchanged for the starting 11.
Lou?
I agree with the lack of changes, and I don't think it will be a battering. I think it's obviously a game that everybody is looking at as a game that's going to have a lot of goals. But what the key bit that Luke said that I agree with would be the fact that there was not going to be 3 or 4 men marking Somerville. I think Somerville's going to have a bit more space than he has done, and I think with our front 4 having a bit more space, I think they can be a little bit more efficient, I guess, than they have been in the last couple of games. So I think we'll win. I think it will be 3-1. I just think we'll have that joy. And in that time Luke was talking, I've managed to convince myself that after Preston, we beat Ipswich, we beat Preston, and Ipswich lose these 2 games. The gap's 4 points, and then we're looking at a completely different ball game. And that isn't, considering they've got Leicester, I think, after us, it's not the most outrageous suggestion for there to be a 4-point gap. 10 does sound like a lot, but when their next fixtures are first and third,
it could be 13 after Saturday, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is, but this is why we said it's such a big game. This is almost a perfect game for us, having sat, in front of those defences for the last 2 games in this negative way of playing. And we can't expect teams to come to Ellen Road and do it. Plymouth tried to do it. We've gone, what have they done that for? And it's like, well, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? We're gonna win. We're gonna win those sorts of games. And unless Ipswich surprise us and do something different, and like you said, Luke, they're not very good at that anyway. I think they're going to stick to their philosophy. They don't seem like a team that are going to change it up too much. So yeah, 3-1, no changes. If we do need to make some changes, let's hope the subs come on a little sooner.
So one of the changes that we kicked around before the game at the weekend was, should Gray go to left back to let Spence play right back, meaning only one of them's playing out of position instead of both of them?
But Gray ain't playing out of position at right back. He played there for England.
He did, but Spence would be in his natural position, I think, is the point.
Yeah, but I also think that Spence is more. He's got much more experience to be able to play on the left than you put him, basically a kid that's never played at left back at all in his life.
But he doesn't look like a kid. I think he's probably a more intelligent footballer than Spence. So I wouldn't be against Gray at left back and Spence at right back, just to see, if we attack down Spence's channel, and might take the
with Dan James him against Leif Davis.
Just think about that pace that's Dan James and Jed Spence together.
Yeah.
I could make an argument for against Jack Clark, and if their best defender their best attacker is playing on the left wing, then I think Jed Spence should play at right back, because Jed Spence is a natural right back, and that is his position, and he'll know how to defend out there. Games like this, I don't actually know who's the best winger. I would argue that their best winger is their right winger, who scored that belter of a goal the other week.
Wes Burns.
That's him, yeah. So yeah, I would still leave Spence on the left for this game.
Fez. So I've gone 3-2 on this one. I think it will be a pretty close game. I think we'll have enough, but I think it'll end up being a bit of a basketball. It'll be end to end. I think we'll just have a bit too much up front. But I don't see an easy one in this one. I think it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster, which the old ticker's going to struggle with. But is what it is. So I think, and I do agree with you. I think the first team, the starting 11, I think it's pretty until such a time as we get Byron back, who I think comes straight back into the team as soon as he's fit because of the season he's had so far. I think the team's picking itself. The first 11 is going to be the first 11.
Is this a hyperbole by Smarty or what? Why would you play somebody who excels in a certain position somewhere else because a child's played there internationally? Why would you play somebody? You're almost contradicting yourself in the same sentence there, Smite. He's played there internationally. But there we go.
Yeah, I against kids. But he was a kid, so it was against peers. But yeah, the reason I asked the question is because it was an interesting one, and I'm not entirely certain how I feel either way. But I think you are right. He's an intelligent footballer. He's just natural. I think Spence is more of an athlete than an intelligent individual. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, a few people said they weren't pleased with his body language, which I thought was a bit harsh. Jed Spence, yeah. I don't.
I think he
needs a bit more of a chance,
doesn't get back as much. He doesn't like to get back though. When he's made his runs forward, he'll stand on the left wing quite happily, won't he? Do you know what I mean?
We've all been there.
Why he might be better, which is why he might be better at right back, because Dan James actually does get back and cover a bit more than Cree does. So
yeah, true. But Cree's best games are when he does that. When he just wants the ball everywhere, and he'll chase back. He'll just work his ass off.
Yeah.
So Andy's gone 6-2 leads. Made me chuckle.
It's a solid prediction.
It is. So moving on to Preston then. Luke mentioned that they've been battered. They got smashed at home 5-1 by Watford. Watford, who have not been particularly good this season. I can't remember.
Do we ever beat Preston though?
The 9th.
I feel like we always draw against them.
From them. Yeah, no, it's fair. Beckford did his best, didn't he? To negate anything that Preston were going to do against us when he played for them. But no, I've not gone and looked at the head-to-head history. It doesn't feel like a team that we regularly get a result against.
I'm just thinking, Gilly. Alex Neil's just lost his job at Stoke, so he'll probably be in charge at Preston, which means we definitely won't win.
The last 2 times we played them, we drew. We beat them in 2019. We beat them in 2018. They won 2. We drew. We beat them. Drew. We beat them. Yeah, it's mixed really over the last 13 times we've played them. We've won 6, lost 3, drawn 4.
Okay,
looks like cheer us all up.
Yeah. Anyone going to
kit against Preston?
Anyone going to Preston away on Boxing Day? Remember, we're going the blue kit. Well, enjoy.
Okay. Yeah. In terms of personnel, then I think we might be identifying that one as somewhere we might see some changes. It's a quick turnaround. It's Saturday, Tuesday. Yeah. So, Lou, who do you think we might see there?
At Preston?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we're talking mostly about changes at the back. But it will be a good indicator to see about the trust levels, because he doesn't seem intent on resting players. Like, I think Ampadu spoke to the press today about people saying he might, is he exhausted from all the games he's playing? And he says that he's physically in a good place, and that he's monitoring his recovery really well. I honestly can't see much change happening unless player takes a knock. We've seen the extremes of how badly we've played. If he made, I guess you could call it, wholesale changes against Stoke, and we saw a massive difference. And I think that was a real eye-opener for us to say, okay, right, well, Farker knows what he's doing because he's picking the best team. Like every other game, he's been picking the best team. And it was probably a moment of realisation for him where he was like, right, so now I know my 11. Because it was a horrific performance. I mean, you probably can't count the first few games, but we haven't played as badly as that all season. The Stoke game was terrible in many ways, and Bamford got the brunt of it because of the whole penalty thing, which he can fuck off for.
So you're saying at the back, but are we seeing Gruev come in maybe?
I wouldn't be against it if his role was to be in front of the back four and stick to his strengths, because I don't think you're going to get the same progressive passing midfielder strengths that we've seen with Kamara and Ampadu, who can do both, like I said earlier. So I wouldn't be against it. He's clearly, he's a Bulgarian international. I wouldn't know a lot about Bulgarian football or what that means, but if he's an international player, he's been at a reputable German club. There's clearly a football player there. We just haven't seen it yet. So I wouldn't be against it at all, as long as he was comfortable in the team with the role that he's been given. Because as we're seeing, the whole square pegs, round hole sort of thing or whatever doesn't work, and we haven't seen the best leads yet, I don't think, on that basis. So let's see. I think, central midfield and the wing backs are what we're most likely to see the changes.
And on that then, so there's talk in the comments about Firpo being available.
Yeah.
Expect him to come back in?
As the only natural left back, I'd say you'd probably have to. That does, of course, if he has a good game, Firpo left back, Spence right back is what we've been talking about. Obviously, that gives us a little bit of creativity in selection in midfield. So it should be a good thing that we're talking about, but we're talking about Junior Firpo. So we're do you know what I mean? So this should be a good thing, because before Firpo came back and we realised, how awful he is again, we were going, as soon as Firpo's back, it's going to be Spence right back, Firpo, Strout, Rodon, Kamara, Ampadu, and we're all happy. But again, Farke loves Gray, and he's just not out. He's not out of place in this team, and I just think perhaps Kamara would sit out if that does happen and Firpo comes back. Well, I hope it is. And I do love Kamara, by the way. We did disagree on the game he had the other day, but I think maybe I'm just thinking about the time he tripped over the ball or something. I don't know. I can't get it out of my head for some reason.
Poorly. He definitely did start the game poorly. I agree with that, but he came into it and he won a lot of ball back when it wasn't even there to be won on a good few occasions. For me, though, in terms of personnel, I think we're probably right. I'd probably see three or four changes. I think maybe not just personnel wise, but positionally. I think I'd like to see Kamara and not Kamara, Pirro and Rutter swapped for that game. I'd like to see Nonto come on, maybe start over Krieg, give Krieg a bit of rest. Just give some of these players that, West Brom's going to be a tough game away from home. Very tough game. Ipswich is going to be a tough game. Of the three, Preston is the easiest based on their current results.
Yeah.
And that would be the one I'd be looking to start, maybe resting one or two. I would maybe not even make four changes, maybe two or three. I think would be enough to, just to give people game time, but also give people enough of a break as well. Whether you start the players that you would normally start, but make the changes much, much sooner. To give those tired legs a rest, or what? I don't know. But
are you saying there's two part of the bus teams? Would you say there, Preston and West Brom, of what we're likely to see?
No, not West Brom. No chance. West Brom are flying, man.
That could be a good away day for us then if they don't do that.
So West Brom have only won 2 in the last 5. They've lost 2 and drawn 1.
Yeah, but they're a good football inside.
Yeah, they are. They play decent football. They try and play football.
They are, but are they going to be good enough to beat us if they do that? That's the thing. Like the way to beat us is to park it.
Yeah,
and we've struggled. So is Corberan feels a little bit more diverse than Bielsa, and I don't want to compare the two, but if they have similar ideologies or whatever. I didn't look at West Brom against Leeds at the start of the season and think Bielsa. I don't know about anyone else.
No, absolutely not.
I didn't think they were particularly attacking either. They've got Jed Wallace in their team. I'm not convinced at all.
No, and I think that's fair. I do think that's fair. But I think, if we're talking about the potential of Firpo coming back in, that probably means Spence to right back rather than dropping Spence, which frees Gray up. If we talk about Gruev coming in, does that mean Ampadu and Kamara drop out? Because for me, that's too many changes. But I'd like to see Archie play in midfield because I think he enjoys it there, and I like watching him play in there. But for me, I wouldn't change both of the central midfielders. So is that Ampadu playing again? There's lots of questions to be asked around exactly what will happen. I think West Brom have been. So they drew against Stoke in the last one out. They lost against Leicester, but a lot of sides are going to lose against Leicester. And they beat Sunderland, which we failed to do. So, they're doing all right at the minute. They're not scoring a huge number of goals, but they do try and play football. So it's one of those where I hope we can do something about it. But going back to the Preston game, I think I do expect to see some changes. My concern around that is that Stoke position of, with so many changes, it just unbalanced the side, and we were awful on the day. We were really
too many players that hadn't played a lot of football, all being changed on the same day, and on paper we're going, oh yeah, Gruev's all right, yeah, Anthony's been good, and then none of them turned up really.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say about match fitness as well. Like, you can make these wholesale changes, but they're not going to be used to the knocks and the bumps and the running around. They can train all they like, but it's not match fitness. So yeah, we've got to be really careful.
No, and they're not. We're not going to be resting players at Christmas either. Like, if our best 11 is available, that's the team that's going to get picked. Because the fixtures are too important at Christmas, because so much can change in 6 days?
Yeah, no time at all. Like they come thick and fast, don't they?
23rd, 26th, 29th, and then one on New Year's Day, isn't it? So four games in 8-9 days. It's a lot.
It is. So I'm going to push you for some predictions now. So on the Preston one, Luke,
4-1.
Okay, I'm going to go.
We're scoring 8 and conceding 2 in the next 2 games.
In the next 2, and then we'll lose to West Brom.
Is that will that be a 5-4 loss?
8-2.
I'm going to go 2-1 Leeds against Preston.
You think that's going to be closer than Ipswich? Right. I've got 3-1. 3-1 is my regular. I go that a lot, apparently. So
that's the standard Man City Super 6 prediction, isn't it?
Yeah. What was the score you go for, Gilly?
I've gone 3-1 at Preston, and that's my.
You've gone 3-1 for both games, then, haven't you?
No, 3-2. 3-2 against Ipswich and 3-1 against Preston. Cool. Okay, so in terms of running order, we're all done on that. Just going to have a quick glance through the comments and I've started another couple. One of the questions. So Skip asks us this: how many points are we getting from Ipswich, Preston, West Brom, Birmingham? So Luke has said we're getting beat by West Brom, so we can't be getting 10. But Skip's gone 10. Luke, how many do we get in total?
I think we get 6. Whoa. I actually think we'll draw with West Brom. I think we'll get 8 points from that. I think we'll draw with Birmingham as well. No, we'll beat Birmingham. We'll get 10. 9 or 10.
Lou?
I'm going to go 7. I feel like Birmingham are a bogey team and they'll probably beat us. But the wins are going to be Ipswich, Preston, and then West Brom draw.
Fair. I think I agree with that. I think I watched Birmingham. I watched some of Birmingham against Leicester, and I thought they were quite unlucky. Leicester smashed the ball against their own post with Birmingham putting them under a lot of pressure, and Leicester just went up other end and scored, and it changed the dynamic of the game for a little bit. But they do seem to be steadily turning it around, which is a real shame because I wanted Rooney to really, really fail there. So that is quite a shame. But cool. All right. It feels like we've been on ages, and I've been rabbiting on. Anything more?
Not you rabbiting. We have been on for ages.
Anything more to say before we clock off tonight, lads?
Really quick.
I was just about to say. I think the grannies are quite sexy in Birmingham, so Rooney will be hoping he can stay there for a while.
Nice. Luke, you said you had something.
Yeah, Jay, you're not real normal size in real life, mate.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, just one last thing to mention. So, Dandy's Man Club stuff for December. So, Friday 22nd, 6:30 p.m. till 9 p.m. There's a pool and snooker night at Northern Snooker Centre on Kirkstall Road. Small donations welcome, but not necessary. And then on the 31st, on New Year's Eve, there's a walk and talk at Temple Newsham. It's alongside the Women's Wellbeing Network, Leeds Dads and Mental Health Mates Leeds, and that's meeting in the courtyard at 11 a.m. So get yourself down, and remember, it's okay to talk and it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah,
cool. Thank you for your... Oh, go on.
Just a couple more. Yeah, a couple more things. Just wish Peacock Whites of LUSC all the best. Who's in hospital at the moment. So wish you a speedy recovery. And then the other thing was just to wish everybody a very merry, because we won't be here till after Christmas now. It'll be B&C Preston until we see everyone again.
Oh, of course.
So have a great Christmas with you and yours.
Have a good Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
Terrifying.